I sometimes get questions about how can I anticipate whether I'm going to have a high conflict divorce or not. There are certain signs you can usually spot regarding whether you're going to have a contentious case. It's usually involving how your spouse is. If that person leading up to filing for a divorce is already being very difficult in how they're behaving, how they're treating you, how you might be dealing with addiction issues, you name it, those are usually signs that there's going to be a problem. I also oftentimes deal with people asking about how do I deal with a narcissistic spouse? It's pretty prevalent in divorce cases, and that is where you're dealing with a spouse that everything is all about them. They are not empathetic to anybody other than themselves. Those are difficult cases to deal with. They're usually going to lead to some conflict in your case, and you need legal representation that knows how to deal with narcissistic spouses. We're experienced with that because it's a prevalent problem that is walking a fine line on how you deal with those types of people. Another sign of a potentially high contentious divorce is circumstances where the other spouse is trying to financially control you. They are limiting your access to money, limiting your access to bank accounts, limiting your access to credit cards, cutting you off from those type of accounts. Things that are in California what we call as coercive control. You're trying to limit the access to your spouse to not only assets, but also friends, family. You're trying to manipulate you. And in California, in the last 5 years, that became a form of domestic violence that can be litigated because it's a real issue. Nobody should be limiting what you can do in terms of seeing people, in terms of access to money. But if that's happening in your situation, you can probably rest assured you're going to have a pretty contentious divorce. And you're definitely going to need legal representation in that circumstance because that type of spouse is not going to be easy to deal with. And you're going to need help in that regard almost always. More times than not, we have to deal with false accusations in divorce cases. And that's where the other spouse is just lying. They're just making up circumstances, they're making up facts, or they're exaggerating or manipulating the facts. And so, number one, you have to be on the offensive to respond to those kind of accusations, make it clear that that is not what's going on right from the get-go. That's not something you want to lay down and ignore. It's something you need to address. And then in court, if we're dealing with false accusations, that's where we're going to attack the other spouse. That's when we're going to go through and basically address these false accusations. That's where we're going to go over. That party is not credible. Our client's credible. Our client knows the truth. Our client tells the truth. That's what's going on. So that's what you have to do in circumstances where you have to deal with false accusations. You're trying to attack the credibility of the person that's making up these false accusations, which happens, unfortunately, more times than not in divorce or custody cases. Let's be honest, in divorce cases, it's not easy. You have a lot of things you have to deal with, and divorce is mentally exhausting. It's anguishing. It's just not an easy process to get through. You want to, in those circumstances, have relationships, maintain your relationship with your friends and family. You want to deal with stress. I oftentimes recommend people go get individual counseling to deal with this. This is the hardest part of your life for most people. And it's not a pretty process. And so you want to get the type of help that you need. Take care of yourself mentally, work out, take care of yourself physically, eat well. The things that people will tell you to do anyways, it's even more so when you're going through a divorce case. You need to do what you can to keep your sanity, and you want to deal with the emotional part of this. You know, I sometimes get questions about when should I compromise in a divorce case, or when should I stop fighting? I think it depends on the circumstances of your case. I think that in circumstances, if you're getting a resolution of your case that you are okay with, that is in your best interest, maybe that's not everything you want, but it's a fair resolution, especially when you're talking about custody, because it's not just about you, it's about what's in the best interest of your children. And so you have to look at the circumstances here of what makes sense. Some things are worth fighting for till the end, and some things are not. You also have to look at, can you handle years of anguish to deal with divorce litigation or custody litigation to get a resolution that you may or may not end up liking? You need to be honest with yourself and determine what's worth fighting for and what's not. And you're going to know that more than anything. And if you have legal representation, we're going to tell you that. We're going to say, this is worth it. I always say it's not worth spending $10,000 for $1,000 of benefit, let's say. It makes no sense to fight over things when you can compromise and get it done sooner. It's not unusual for me. I've seen people fight for a year or two in a custody battle to end up what they could have settled on with the same exact orders that you could have settled on in the beginning, but people want to fight it all the way through. I don't think that's a good idea. People do it. That's where you need advice to get through this, to make decisions that make sense for you and be practical about it. If you have any other questions about high conflict divorce, please contact the Maggio Law Firm for more information.